A Nolan Wells bombshell report tonight. Does it reveal new witnesses?
Here is an audio of Treth calls to Trayston Shepard's father.
Don't try and run now, you. Your son is a and he's about to get all the way. Don't run now, you. You guys are gonna get what the coming to you. I know he killed that little kid, man. You guys aren't. Your wife ain't racist.
How can the father of somebody who murdered another person go and try to receive donations using the name of the murder victim? You know what you've done. I'm 22 years old. I'm just a bit older than your son, Warren. I can't believe that I live in a world with people like you and your son. I can't believe that I live in a world with evil, racist, white people who then go and falsely claim that they praise God while living racist, evil, selfish, harmful lives while they take the lives of innocent people. God's light shines down for Nolan Xavier Wells. The truth will come out. And you are evil. You are evil to your root. You decide it. And I hope that you soon change, or that soon you face every pain that you've brought upon other people. I hope that your son faces that same pain, and the pain that he brought through his racist actions, and continues to bring through his racist actions. You have raised your son to be a racist, heartless person who has taken the life of another person. And God, I hope that you burn in hell for it.
Justice for Noah Wells, son for a son. Justice for Noah Wells, son for a son. Justice for Noah Wells, son for a son. Justice for Noah Wells, son for a son.
Justice for Nolan Wells. Justice for Nolan Wells, father of a murderer.
Not only has the timeline been analyzed by the Cajun Navy, the U.S. Cajun Navy, based on all sorts of statistical data, new photos are emerging. Take a look at this photo before we go to the Cajun Navy. Look at this. Check out what you're seeing. Look at all the boats surrounding where Nolan was. Leave up the photo out to Caitlin Becker, senior national correspondent, New York Post, star of New York Postcast, their new podcast. Caitlin, what are we seeing?
Well, what we're seeing here comes from this new report from the United Cajun Navy, and you're seeing several boats strung together. This is one of the first images that we've seen of this certain configuration of boats there. They're all identified, one of which was the boat that Nolan came out there on. There's several others kind of anchored with it and tied up, which begs the question of where was Nolan when this photo was taken, because it's unclear if he's actually in it. What time was this photo actually taken? So what you're seeing here is, as you said, a potential pool of witnesses.
Hey, Caitlin, look at this. There's boat number 1. There's boat X. There's boat number 2. There's boat number 3. And there's a boat from which the photo is taken. Now, look in the water. There much has been made. Nolan Wells was drinking. Okay, well, apparently everybody was. They all have containers, open containers in the water. Okay, as far as I know, that's not a felony. Boat number 1, full of people. Boat X, full of people. Boat number 2, full of people. Boat number 3, full of people. People on the boat from which the photo was taken. Some of these boats tied together. You know what that means in my world, Caitlin Becker, joining us in the New York Post? Let me see, Caitlin, please.
22 pages. That is the entire document. 22 pages. Released to the public on August 3rd. And within a day, it had produced 2 national reactions that were not just different, but opposite. One broadcast treated it as the break the case had been waiting for. Boats identified. People visible. A pool of witnesses finally sitting in front of the public in daylight. Another commentator pulled the same file up on a live stream, scrolled it page by page, and called it a nothing burger. His words, not mine. He said it proved nothing, moved nothing, and should never have been published at all. Same document. Same afternoon. Two completely irreconcilable verdicts. So we did the boring thing. We read it, and what we found is that the argument everyone is having is not really about the document. It is about what people wanted the document to be. Once you see the question each side walked in with, the disagreement stops being confusing and starts being predictable. Here is what is actually in those 22 pages. The file was released by the United Cajun Navy. That is a volunteer organization, not an agency, and they assisted in the search for Nolan Wells on Horn Island. 22 pages. Reported first by TMZ on August 3rd, then picked up by regional outlets including Locks a few days later. The organization says it has been handed to the Jackson County District Attorney, to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and to Nolan's parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley. Now listen to how the organization describes its own work, because they got out ahead of the framing before anyone else could set it for them.
Becker from the New York Post correctly that photo where the boats are named Boat 1, Boat 2, Boat 3, and Boat X, is that from you guys, the United Cajun Navy?
First of all, I want to thank you for calling this report what it is, and it's a timeline. And some people have called it an investigative report, and that's not accurate because, as you know, we're not investigators. And what we did, Nancy, was we asked our followers, say, hey, if anybody was there that day, you have pictures, videos, whatever, send it to us just so we can go through it, see if there's anything relevant. We took all that information and compiled it into just one digestible report of things we thought were relevant and could be helpful. Maybe they're not. Maybe law enforcement's already seen all this and it's nothing new to them. But we just wanted to be transparent about what we received. So going back to your question, the pictures that we received, we did not, as an organization, take any of these photographs. These are all images that we received from people who were trying to help us out and trying to help Nolan's family out.
So you asked the public for help, and you got it. You got a treasure trove of photos, and I find this one significant. Guys, we've got an all-star panel, and I would like the all-star panel to look at their screens, because I've talked about this before, Brian Trasher, and I'm frankly fed up with attacks on the United Cajun Navy. They're doing something, which is more than all of the haters can say. They're doing something. They have amassed evidence. They have created a timeline to the best of their ability. They have shared it with us, unlike the autopsy that is complete and is being kept secret from us. That said, they're helping. Why trash them? That's, I'm not a shrink. I can't answer that. Let's look at this photo and determine what, if anything, we can discern. Brian, you and I have talked many, many times, and I told you about a serial killer I finally convicted on one case. The jury convicted him. And I proved a lot because of one earring. One earring I found in a particular location. The victim was wearing an earring, and the other earring had been sliced out of her ear, and I found it somewhere else, and I learned a lot because of where it was. Now, don't even bother to tell me that this photo that you have produced is not probative of something. The cluster of boats. Number one, I see a lot of witnesses. Trasher, do we know what time this photo was taken?
We don't know definitively times on all these because even though they're time stamped, it could be a time when it was screenshotted, stamped, not necessarily the original photograph. So we were very careful to denote that in our report that we can't verify timelines, although based on shadows and positions and things like that, we can determine that some of these, as noted, are taken in the late afternoon. One of the things I thought was interesting about some of these photos we got, Nancy, was that a lot of the photos we had seen before were people like in waist deep water. Well, some of the photos we provided show people up, water up to their chest, almost to their neck, and that's not really wading. That's treading water, in my opinion, and that I thought might have been significant to know that many people were, perhaps enjoying some libations, but also in water that might have been a little too deep just to be playing in.
Good point. You also said something else really smart, and I certainly do not want to rely on this, but sometimes you have to, you take the evidence as you find it, and you make the most of what you've got. You said you could tell this was late in the afternoon because of the shadowing. I wonder if the tide could tell me anything, because how high up the water is. But these people holding drinks, they're not treading water, Trasher. They're standing there. These people are not treading water, and the water is up to their armpits. Is that the photo you're talking about as to where you think some of them are treading water, or are there other photos?
The photo at the top, yeah, you're right. It's about up to their armpit. I think there was one later in the report that that showed some of the kids. This was a screenshot of a social media post, and there's 3 boats visible, one fourth boat further in the distance, but a lot of kids on one boat. I say kids, young people on one boat, some on the boat, some in the water. And some of them, it looks, maybe up to the armpit, but some of them, depending on their own height, it looks like it's, I could see a girl holding something in her hand, and the water looks to be pretty close to her neck. So that's pretty far out. Now, we've said several times that Horn Island has a very aggressive slope. So you can be in shallow water and deep water within just a few steps. And once you get into that deep water, you're not as able to keep your feet on the ground if a current comes and pulls you, or God forbid a riptide comes and drags you. So that's why we thought it was significant to know that they were socializing in fairly deep water.
Can we go back to the main photo where the boats are numbered 1, 2, 3, X? Isn't it true, Brian Trasher, that these boats are easily identifiable by I call it a tail number, like you would a plane? Every boat has to be registered, or supposed to be registered. It has a number on it, and it often has a name like Triton. One was named Mac Daddy. There were other names. They're registered, and you know who the owner is, and the owner can tell us who was on the boat that day. Is that correct?
Theoretically, yeah. If you can make out the registration number or the name of the boat, if the vessel's name is registered, along with the registration number. Usually that's sometimes only on a Coast Guard document, but sometimes on a state registration, you do put the vehicle, the boat name if it's asked for, or if you have one. So that is all possible. I'm told, and we're asked to compare notes with the sheriff's office, which we're doing. But I was told that there's been a lot of people that have been contacted and interviewed, and there's a lot of people who were there that day that voluntarily came forward to tell what they know, and because they might have seen their boats and pictures, said, "Oh, we might want to go ahead and call them, and let them know, where we were, who was with us, and what we know." So I commend those people for coming forward, because it's not always easy.
That is Brian Trasher, Vice President of the United Cajun Navy, and he is doing something you almost never see in a case this hot. He is lowering expectations for his own release. Not an investigation, a compilation. They asked the public for anything from Horn Island on July 4th. Photos, videos, screenshots. They received a pile of it, sorted it, annotated it, attached coordinates where they could, and published the result in one readable file. He also says the organization did not take a single one of those photographs. Every image in that document came off somebody else's phone, filtered through somebody else's social media post, before it ever reached them. That one sentence explains almost every limitation in the file. Keep it in your pocket, because we are coming back to it. And if you want more of this, breakdowns built off source documents instead of built off other people's reactions, subscribing actually helps. That is the whole ask. Let us get into it. The image that drove the coverage shows a cluster of vessels anchored together off the island. In the report, they are labeled Boat #1, Boat #2, Boat #3, Boat X, the Palm Beach, and the Triton. The Triton is the boat Nolan arrived on. Here is how that photograph was read on national television.
Exposed them to, like Google Earth and satellite pictures of the island to try to determine exactly where they were. We looked at the initial coordinates called out from I think from the Coast Guard or from Marine Patrol when the missing persons report first went out, and basically just try to run these pictures against each other to say, okay, this boat's here now, it's not here later. And again, just create an index. We had to use some software to help us create the index of the pictures and make sure we put it into the best timeline we could. We included social media posts that, may or may not have been definitive, but this was happening in real time. So we thought it was important to put those up there to create context. And so again, like just trying to, you know, our goal was to take what we've received, put it into a digestible format that just about anybody could understand, hopefully. And if it's helpful, great. If it's not, then I don't think, no harm, no foul, you know.
To Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter, based on this timeline, and it may be refined as the days go forward, how does it shift the timeline? Because there is a group of people fighting at 5 p.m. Who are they? The friends say they leave at 4:31. That should be able to be verified through GPS. 5 p.m. Nolan, according to them, is still at Horn Island. Is he? Because by 7:30, witness states Nolan nowhere in sight. So where was he? He wasn't floating in the water. He wasn't on the shore. If he had, hold on, Dave, to Joe Scott Morgan, if he had drowned, wouldn't he be floating in the water?
Perhaps. I've seen bodies in the immediate that will go directly to the bottom. And there are those that do in fact float. So a lot of it is going to depend upon the temperature of the water many times. A lot of it's going to depend upon, is there anything else out there that could, let's see, how can I put this, that could in fact impede the body's ability to float to the top, like beneath a boat. And as you can see, there are a lot of boats out there. So if in fact that had occurred, you can actually have bodies that will be caught beneath other vessels. I've worked cases like that where they were looking around for someone, and they couldn't find them because the whole area was surrounded by vessels. And so there are a lot of elements that go into this.
And look, that argument is not weak. If that many vessels are anchored together, and each one has people aboard and people in the water around it, then the number of human beings physically present in that cove during the window in question is not small. Every single one of them is a potential account. That is a fair thing to notice. Caitlin Becker of the New York Post makes the more careful version of it, and hers is the one worth holding. The boats are identified. The people are visible. What is not established is when the photograph was taken or where Nolan was standing when the shutter went. That second gap is not a small detail. That is the entire problem, and it is going to come up again and again as we go through this. Now the other reading.
I will never, ever, ever begrudge Black folks and folks of color for saying they do not trust white people. And a terribly upsetting example of that is what happened in Nolan Wells. He spent 4th of July weekend with 3 of his friends who he thought were friends, and they are white. He is Black. And Nolan Wells died. We don't know what happened. I'm not going to speculate. That doesn't do anything for anybody. But we as white people have not given people of color, especially Black folks in America, any reasons to trust us as a collective group of people. Full stop. And if you are a white person and you are bothered when Black folks say they don't trust white people, think of this moment. Think of the unfortunately countless other moments in American history where white people have been instigators of violent crimes against Black people. Because whether you like it or not, that is American history. It is. And you can't escape it. But we can do something to change it. And that starts with every one of us white people interrogating the white supremacist ideologies that we were raised with and our society was built upon, and it is our job to undo it.
I know that certain white people, men specifically, people that are conservative, people that are able to think differently than whatever the mass media is trying to program you to think, whatever they trying to program y'all to think on social media. I know y'all are sick of liberal white women apologists because on one hand, she says that she's not going to speculate. She doesn't have an opinion yet. But at the same time, they up here calling for justice, and they don't even know what the cause of death is. As of the recording of this video, right? Nobody knows exactly what happened. There's an active investigation going on, but we're so focused on racism and trying to make everything a black versus white conversation, right? We're so focused on trying to make everything a liberal talking point. We're so focused on trying to make sure that everybody understands that you, as a white woman, you're not a racist. You're not one of them. We don't understand. We have to use our privilege in order to try to feel some type of emotion or find some kind of justice or interrogate everybody. And I'm telling you, bro, it's these liberal white apologists and the culture is the ones that keep making everything a race issue.
These kids hadn't been threatened and lied on. And why do you say lied on, Brandon? They have shown me evidence. I have seen and verified evidence. There is Life 360 evidence. There's CETO call evidence that proves what they're saying and that people have been lying about them so long that they need to take legal action against people. These boys had not been lied on and threatened in front of me. I saw threats coming in. But the fact that they now got to sue people and Nolan Wells' family and attorney is prepping to sue them with no information of what happened to Nolan, whether he was killed or he drowned. They don't even care. They're trying to make money, so they're going to sue these boys. Then I wouldn't even support this. If these boys were black and you got white folk out here claiming they didn't kill somebody with no evidence, only because they're black, put the GoFundMe up there. Here's a glimpse of some of the things that they're getting as hate mail.
Don't try and run now, you. Your son is a piece of shit, and he's about to get all the way up. Don't run now, you. Use a punk just like your son, you guys are gonna get what the coming to you. I know he killed that little kid, man. You guys aren't shit. Your wife ain't shit. All you racist pieces of shit. All you.
All right, next one.
You and your folks think y'all ass so smart, so slick. All this other your son gonna get the worst of it, and he know it. Your sons and them gonna disable their account and all this other Bruce style. Your scared to answer their phone cause you know what's going on, and ain't nobody scared of y'all white ass to be worried about that boy. Cause I promise you something gonna happen to you. And you might wanna go and block me, cause I swear to God I'm gonna call you up on every day until they come clean.
Do you know how hateful and racist these people are to come call somebody and say that to them? They deactivate their accounts because they're getting threatened like this. They deactivate their account because y'all fools calling them and want to talk about you gonna kill them because they get accused of murder. They're being accused of murder. Y'all, they didn't go to the funeral because y'all threatened to kill them.
Strip the heat off that, and his position is this. The document identifies a hole in the timeline. It does not fill it. There is no image in it that shows Nolan. There is no time in it that is confirmed. There is no cause named and no responsibility assigned. So nothing moved. And here is the part that is going to be uncomfortable for people who wanted this to be a clean fight. On the question he is asking, he is mostly right. The report does not determine how Nolan Wells died. It does not assign responsibility to any person. There is no photograph in it that places him at a confirmed location at a confirmed time. If your question is, does this tell us what happened? The document itself answers no, repeatedly, in writing. Where he goes wrong is in calling that a failure, because nobody claimed otherwise. Trasher said it into a camera before the criticism even started. It is a compilation, not a conclusion. Judging it for failing to solve the case is like opening a phone book and complaining nobody called you. So let us actually go through it, because this is the part almost nobody covered. The report opens by setting its own terms. Rather than force a conclusion, it says the useful move is to sort every piece of supplied material into categories. What is visually documented? What is reported by a witness? What is only annotated by a secondary source? And what simply remains unknown? That is not a dramatic framework. It is a filing system. And it is exactly why the file reads as flat to anyone who opened it expecting a reveal. Then come the findings, and nearly every one of them is a statement about a limit. Take the departure time. The Triton is stated to have left the island at 4:31 in the afternoon. The report says that time has not been verified through GPS, through engine data, or through any other electronic record. It is a stated time, not a confirmed one. That distinction has been collapsed in almost every retelling of this case, including by people who should know better. Take the video. 2 supplied screen recordings show phone interface clocks reading approximately 3:23 and 4:27. And the report goes out of its way to warn you about them. Because those are clocks visible inside captured social media content, it says, they should be treated as timing indicators and not automatically as verified original camera timestamps. Read that again slowly. Somebody filmed their own screen while a video played. The clock you can see is the clock on the phone doing the filming. That is not the same thing as knowing when the original was shot, and there is a detail underneath that one which nobody picked up at all. The report notes that the container metadata on 5 of the supplied video files shows creation and export dates in late July. Then it tells you plainly what that means. Those dates describe the supplied digital files. They do not describe the July 4th events inside them. What the organization received were copies of copies, reposts of reposts, which is precisely why the entire back end of this document is one long request for originals. Take the boat movements. The report documents that vessel positions changed. Frontier Bay and boat #2 are not where they were in an earlier frame. A later photograph gives a checkpoint after the stated departure. But it states it cannot establish when they moved, where they went, who was aboard, or whether any of it connects to Nolan at all. And then there is the geospatial section, which is the most technical part of the file and the part that got the least attention, and honestly that is a shame, because it is the most disciplined work in the document. They take the search datum from official correspondence. They convert it from degrees and minutes into decimal coordinates. They compare it against a separately supplied map pin and find the two sit roughly 1.5 meters apart, which they treat as the same location within normal GPS precision. A second supplied coordinate sits about 279 meters off, and rather than build a theory on it, they write that the material does not establish what event that second point represents. That is careful work. It is also completely undramatic, which is exactly why it never made a single broadcast. Now, the gap. Because everything in this file orbits one interval. Nolan's last independently corroborated sighting sits in the mid-afternoon. Warren Hudson, who was on the island with him, has said publicly in an interview on the Officer Tatum show that around 3 in the afternoon was the last time he personally laid eyes on him. The Triton is stated to have left at 4:31, after taking on water, without him aboard. And then the record thins out badly. There is a social media statement placing a group described as almost fighting at around 5 in the afternoon, and saying a Bertram with a blue top pulled out shortly after, moving fast. The report includes it. It also includes the reply that disputes it, from someone saying the person involved was not Nolan. The report does not resolve that. It flags it and leaves it standing. And that is the correct call, even though it is unsatisfying, because a contested account cannot be nailed down as a fixed point on a timeline. You cannot build on ground that is still moving. Then comes the 7:30 observation, and this is where a lot of online coverage has gone sideways. A woman named Caitlin Brochard, who was on the island that day, photographed the vessels and stated that Nolan was nowhere in sight when her group left around 7:30 in the evening. Now read that the way the report reads it. That is a statement about visibility. It is not a statement about location. Not being seen in one area, by one group, at one moment, is not the same as not being on the island. Those are two very different claims, and only one of them was actually made. The document treats it exactly right. A reported observation, not a confirmed sighting, and not a confirmed absence. Nolan Wells was recovered from the water just off Horn Island on the morning of July 6th. Between the mid-afternoon and the evening of July 4th, the public record has a hole in it. That is the finding. That is the whole finding. Everything else in 22 pages is the work of describing the edges of that hole as precisely as possible. If there is a section of this file you want pulled apart in more detail, say so in the comments. We do read them, and they shape what gets made next. So who was right about the document? Both of them. About different questions. The commentator asked whether it tells us what happened to Nolan Wells. Correct answer, no. The broadcast asked whether it helps identify who might be able to tell us. Correct answer, yes. Those are not the same question, and this document was only ever engineered to answer the second one. Look at what it recommends and the design becomes obvious. Get the original videos instead of the reposts. Get phone and location data. Get vessel GPS and engine records. Get a complete passenger roster for every boat anchored in that cove. Nobody who thinks they have solved something writes that list. That is a document telling investigators which doors are still shut and exactly which keys open them. Brian Fitzgibbons of USPA Nationwide Security, on the same broadcast, put it in the cleanest terms anyone managed. The value is in providing a framework to build an investigation off of, not the answer. The scaffolding you need before an answer is even possible. And he raised one more thing that deserves more attention than it got. Nobody on that island knew they were a witness at the time. There was no gunshot, no explosion, no moment that told 200 people to look up and start remembering. It was a holiday. People were in the water with drinks in their hands. Nobody was checking a watch because there was nothing yet to check it against. So when accounts conflict on timing, that is not evidence of a cover-up. That is evidence of memory working the way memory works. And Fitzgibbons made the sharper point, the one that should stay with you. If every single account matched perfectly, same times, same sequence, same phrasing, that would be the thing worth being suspicious about. Here is where all of this leaves us. A volunteer organization asked the public for help, got buried in material, and published what it had, along with an honest account of everything that material cannot prove. It is now in the hands of the district attorney, the sheriff's office, and the family. The family has retained attorney Ben Crump, whose team is running an independent review. And there is one more piece of context that makes this whole thing land differently. The information environment around this case has already produced fabricated material. On August 1st, Mississippi Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall publicly addressed a purported toxicology report attributed to Nolan Wells and stated it was fraudulent. Sit with that for a second. Documents are already being manufactured in this case and passed around as real, which means a 22-page file that repeatedly, almost stubbornly, tells you what it cannot prove is worth considerably more than it first looks, not less. In an environment full of confident answers, the thing that admits its own limits is the rarer object. The gap between the afternoon and the evening of July 4th is still open. Closing it will take original files, device data, vessel records, and a full accounting of who was in that cove. Until those exist in the public record, everything else, from the broadcasts to the live streams to this video, is interpretation. We will keep following the source material as it comes. If you want the next one when it drops, subscribe and turn notifications on. Thanks for being here.